A massive space station called the Nexus Arena floated in the dark void like a giant metal flower. Its countless lights twinkled against the stars, and ships from dozens of worlds docked at its many ports. Inside this enormous structure, the greatest warriors in the galaxy fought for glory, honor, and prizes beyond imagination. Captain Daeho Kim stared out the window of his small Earthship as they approached the station. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded with excitement and worry. This was humanity's first chance to join the Galactic Combat Federation. Everything depended on the next few hours. "Are you ready for this?" asked Sora Park, checking her combat gear one more time. She was Earth's finest fighter, trained in every martial art known to humans. Her muscles were lean and strong, her reflexes lightning quick. If anyone could impress the alien judges, it would be Sora. "As ready as we can be," Daeho replied. He looked at his small team. Wu Jin Lee sat quietly in the corner, his engineer's mind probably calculating 1,000 different possibilities. Hai-Jin Choi reviewed her diplomatic notes, preparing for the formal presentations they would need to make. The Earthship docked with a soft thud. Through the airlock came a strange smell of alien atmospheres and the sound of dozens of different languages. The Nexus Arena was home to creatures from across the galaxy, and today they would all be watching to see what humans could do. A tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms greeted them. "Welcome, humans," it said in perfect English. "I am Guide Cal Run. The Council is eager to see your demonstration." They walked through corridors filled with amazing sights. Aliens with scales, fur, metal skin, and bodies made of pure energy moved past them. Some were twice as tall as humans, others so small they rode in floating spheres. Warriors with natural armor plating sparred in practice rooms, while creatures with 6 arms practiced weapon techniques that would be impossible for humans to copy. Daeho felt a chill of doubt. How could soft-skinned humans compete with beings who were born with natural weapons and armor? The demonstration arena was smaller than the main fighting space, but still impressive. Thousands of seats rose up around a circular floor covered in different surfaces: metal, stone, sand, and even pools of water. The alien council sat in a special viewing box, their strange forms barely visible in the shadows. "Honored Council members," Hai-Jin began her presentation, "humanity comes before you with respect and determination. We may not have natural armor or great physical strength, but we have something special. We have the ability to adapt, to learn, and to overcome any challenge." A voice boomed from the council box. It sounded like grinding rocks. "Show us, soft ones. Prove your words have meaning." Sora stepped into the arena. She wore simple fighting clothes and carried basic human weapons: a sword, a staff, and small throwing knives. Across from her, a mechanical door opened and out stepped her test opponent. The creature was huge, nearly 8 feet tall, with natural bone armor covering its entire body. Its arms ended in claws as long as kitchen knives, and its legs were thick as tree trunks. This was a Vorthic warrior, one of the Federation's most feared fighters. "Begin," the rocky voice commanded. The Vorthic charged forward like a tank, its claws aimed at Sora's chest. But she was not there when the claws arrived. She had rolled to the side and was already moving, her sword flashing in the arena lights. The blade struck the creature's armor and bounced off harmlessly. The Vorthic turned with surprising speed and swung its massive arm. Sora ducked under the swing and struck again, this time aiming for a joint in the armor. For 10 minutes they fought. The Vorthic was strong and nearly impossible to hurt, but Sora was faster and smarter. She used the different surfaces of the arena to her advantage, leading the creature onto slippery metal and loose sand. When it charged, she used its own momentum against it. When it tried to corner her, She found ways to escape that the creature never expected. Finally, breathing hard but still moving, Sora managed to trip the giant warrior and place her sword at its throat. In a real fight, the Vorthic's armor would have protected it, but she had proven she could outfight a creature 3 times her size. The arena fell silent. Sora helped the Vorthic to its feet, and the big warrior actually nodded at her with what might have been respect. "Impressive," came a new voice from the council box, this one sounding like wind chimes. "The human shows skill, but skill alone is not enough for our arena." Another voice joined in, strange and echoing as if spoken underwater. "The human defeated. Our warrior through cleverness, not strength. Our crowds want to see power, not tricks." The rocky voice spoke again. "Humans are interesting, but they are too weak for the true arena. Their skin is soft, their bones break easily, their muscles are small. They would die in the first round against any real champion." Daiho stepped forward. "Respected council, you have seen only a small sample of what humans can do. Give us a chance to prove ourselves in your arena. We will show you that strength comes in many forms." There was a long pause. The council members whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like music, grinding stone, and rushing water. Finally, the rocky voice returned. "The council has decided. Humans are too primitive for the Galactic Combat Federation. Your species lacks the proper evolutionary advantages required for arena combat. You have no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no psychic abilities, no specialized combat organs. You are, as your own species might say, too soft." The wind chime voice added, "Perhaps in a few million years, when your species has evolved proper fighting capabilities, you may apply again." The underwater voice finished. "The rejection. The demonstration was amusing, but brief entertainment is not what our arena provides. Your warrior would not survive even the preliminary rounds. This decision is final." Daiho felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Sora's face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched into fists. Wu Jin stared at the floor, and Hai Jin gathered her papers with sharp, angry movements. "We thank the council for their time," Daiho managed to say. His voice stayed calm, but inside he was burning with shame and anger. As they walked back through the corridors of the Nexus Arena, everything looked different. The amazing alien warriors now seemed like bullies. The incredible technology felt like a wall built to keep humans out. The sounds and smells that had excited them before now made them feel small and unwanted. On their ship, nobody spoke until they were far from the station. Finally, Sora broke the silence. "They never intended to accept us," she said quietly. "It was all for show. They wanted to humiliate us." "Maybe," Daiho replied, "but they made a mistake." "What mistake?" Wu Jin asked. Daiho stared out at the stars, his mind already working on plans. "They think being soft makes us weak. They think having no natural weapons makes us helpless. They think needing to use our brains instead of our claws makes us inferior." He turned to face his team, and they saw something new in his eyes. Not anger, not sadness, but determination. "They're wrong about all of it, and we're going to prove it." The small Earth ship turned toward home, carrying 4 humans who had been rejected by the galaxy. But rejection, they were about to learn, could be the beginning of something much more powerful than acceptance. Behind them, the Nexus Arena continued its ancient games, unaware that it had just created its greatest challenge. 6 months had passed since the humiliation at the Nexus Arena. Earth's governments had moved on to other projects, calling the Arena application a learning experience. But Daiho Kim had not moved on. He had been planning in a hidden facility. Deep under the mountains of South Korea, Daiho gathered the most dangerous people on Earth. Not dangerous because they were criminals, but dangerous because they refused to accept defeat. They called us too soft, Daeho said to the group seated around the metal table. They said we were primitives who would die in the first round. I think it's time we showed them what primitives can do. Tae-young Shin leaned back in his chair. He was a man who had spent 20 years in special forces, learning to kill with his bare hands or with any weapon he could find. His body was covered in scars from 100 battles, but his eyes were sharp and clear. What exactly are you suggesting, Captain? I'm suggesting we build our own arena, Daeho replied. And when we're ready, we show the galaxy what human fighters can really do. Yeon Wukong laughed, but not in a mean way. She was a small woman with clever eyes and hands that could build anything from spare parts. Build our own arena? Do you know how much that would cost? How much technology we would need? I know exactly how much, said Mi Young-han from the far end of the table. She was thin and serious, a woman who had planned military operations across 3 continents. Her mind worked like a computer, always calculating costs and possibilities. I've been running the numbers for months. It's possible, but we would need help. What kind of help? Asked Dong-hyun Park. He was a big man with gentle eyes, a former champion fighter who had retired because he was tired of fighting humans. He wanted bigger challenges. By-young looked up from her computer screen. She was the youngest person in the room, barely 25, but she could hack into any system in the galaxy. Her fingers never stopped dancing across holographic keyboards. The kind of help that the Galactic Combat Federation doesn't want us to have. She touched her screen, and images appeared in the air above the table. Alien faces, ship designs, and star charts filled the room with soft blue light. I've been digging through the Federation's records, Yunbai continued. Humans aren't the first species they've rejected. Over the past 1,000 years, they've turned away dozens of races for being inferior or unsuitable. The images changed, showing strange creatures that looked nothing like the powerful warriors they had seen. At the Nexus Arena. These are the Clixuri, she said, pointing to insect-like beings with thin bodies and 4 arms. The Federation said they were too fragile. These are the Hydronians. The next image showed blue-skinned people with gills and webbed fingers, too dependent on water environments. More images followed. The Pixari, too small. The Verdani, too slow. The Nefri, too peaceful. The list goes on and on. Tae-young studied the alien faces. Are any of these rejected species still interested in fighting? All of them, Yunbai replied with a smile. I've been making contact through hidden networks. They're angry, just like us. And some of them have resources we need. Over the following weeks, the underground facility became busier than a military base during wartime. Daeho's team grew as word spread carefully through Earth's fighting communities. Former soldiers, martial artists, weapons experts, engineers, and tacticians arrived in small groups, all sworn to secrecy. Yeon Woo set up workshops where she began, designing weapons and armor unlike anything seen in the Federation arenas. Instead of trying to make humans stronger, she made tools that made humans smarter. Look at this, she said, showing Tae-young a suit of armor that looked almost like normal clothes. It doesn't stop energy blasts or claws, but it reads your opponent's movements and suggests counterattacks. It turns your human reflexes into something superhuman. In another part of the facility, Mi Young worked with holographic battle simulations. She studied every fight recorded from the Nexus Arena, looking for patterns and weaknesses in how the alien fighters moved. They're all so predictable, she explained to Dong-hyun as they watched a massive creature demolish its opponent with brute force. This warrior uses the same 3 attacks in every fight. It wins because it's strong, not because it's smart. A human fighter could adapt to those patterns in minutes. But could a human fighter survive long enough to use that adaptation? Dong Haiyan asked. That's what we're going to find out. The real breakthrough came when Yunbai managed to establish contact with the rejected alien races. The first meeting was held in secret, in a neutral space station at the edge of known territory. Daeho, Sora, and Yunbai met with representatives from 3 species that had been turned away from the Federation. The meeting place was a dingy bar that asked no questions about its customers. The Clixery representative was named Click-Whirr, which was as close as human tongues could come to his real name. He was thin as a stick, with 4 arms and compound eyes that saw in all directions. When he moved, it was so fast that he seemed to blur. Your species and mine, he said in heavily accented but clear English. We have been insulted by the same. Fools. The Hydronian was called Deep Current, and she had to wear a special suit filled with water to survive in the station's dry air. Her skin was blue-green and smooth, and her large eyes never blinked. My people have fought in our oceans for millions of years, she said, her voice bubbling through her water mask. But the Federation says water fighting is not real combat. The third alien was the strangest. The Pixery representative, known to humans as Tiny Storm, was only 2 feet tall. But when he spoke, his voice carried the confidence of someone much larger. The Federation measures worth by size and strength, he said. They do not understand that the greatest victories come from the mind, not the muscle. Over the course of several hours, they shared their stories. Each species had been rejected for different reasons, but the real reason was always the same. They were different from what the Federation considered proper warriors. So what do we do about it? So Ra asked. Click-Whirr's compound eyes focused. On her, we build what they will not give us. We create our own arena with our own rules. The humans have the planning skills, added Deep Current. My people have technology for life support and construction in space. The Clixery can build quickly, said Click-Whirr. And the Pixery have miniaturized technology that will amaze you. Tiny Storm nodded. Together, we can create something this Federation has never seen. A place where being different is strength, not weakness. By the end of the meeting, they had the framework of a plan. It would take years to complete, and it would be dangerous. The Federation did not like competition, and they had the power to destroy anyone who challenged them. But as Daeho looked around the table at his new alien allies, he felt something he had not experienced since leaving the Nexus arena. He felt hope not back on Earth. The secret project expanded. Alien volunteers began arriving in small groups, careful to avoid Federation attention. The underground facility grew into an underground city, with workshops, training areas, and living spaces for dozens of species. Tae-young found himself learning to fight alongside creatures he had never imagined. The Clixery moved like lightning, teaching him to use speed instead of strength. The Hydronians showed him how to fight in 3 dimensions, using walls and ceilings like floors. This is incredible, he told Daeho after a particularly intense training session. We're not just learning to fight aliens. We're learning to fight like aliens. That's the point, Daeho replied. The Federation rejected us because we're different. But different means we think in ways they can't predict. As the months passed, word of their project spread through underground networks across the galaxy. More rejected species made contact. Plans became blueprints, and blueprints became reality. We're building more than an arena. They were building a revolution. The asteroid was perfect for their needs. It floated in a remote part of space where no government claimed territory and no trade routes passed nearby. From the outside, it looked like any other chunk of dead rock. But inside, something amazing was taking shape. Daeho stood on what would become the main arena floor, watching dozens of species work together like they had been partners for centuries. Clixery workers moved with blinding speed, their forearms allowing them to carry out complex construction tasks that would take humans hours to complete. Hydronian engineers had filled sections of the asteroid with breathable water, creating spaces where their people could work comfortably, while still allowing air-breathing species to move through the same areas. The artificial gravity generators are working perfectly, reported Wu Jin, consulting a handheld device that beeped and chirped in alien languages. The Pixery really know their technology. Indeed, the tiny Pixery had contributed far more than anyone expected. Their miniaturized systems allowed the asteroid to have full life support, gravity control, and defensive systems while using a fraction of the power that larger technology would require. Tiny Storm had become something like the chief technical officer for the entire project. Small does not mean weak, he often reminded the human engineers. Small means efficient. The Verdani had surprised everyone the most. When they first arrived, Dai-Ho had worried about the plant-like creatures that moved slowly, and seemed to think for long minutes before responding to any question. But the Verdani understood life support systems better than any other species. They had grown a network of living tunnels throughout the asteroid that cleaned the air, recycled waste, and even provided food for the workers. A tall Verdani named Flowing Sap approached Dai-Ho with careful, deliberate steps. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind through leaves. "The living systems are mature," she said. "This place can now support 10,000 beings indefinitely. We have created not just an arena, but a world." Mi Young emerged from a planning session with representatives from 7 different species. Her usually serious expression showed a hint of excitement. "We need to talk," she said to Dai-Ho. "The combat protocols are working better than we hoped." They walked to a smaller chamber where Mi Young had set up her strategic planning center. Holographic displays showed fight simulations, training schedules, and something called the Outcast Protocol. "Traditional arena fighting is about individual strength," Mi Young explained. "One warrior against another, using the natural advantages their species was born with. But we've developed something completely different." She activated a hologram, showing a mock battle between teams of mixed species. "Watch this simulation. Instead of fighting as individuals, we fight as coordinated units. Each species covers the weaknesses of the others and amplifies their strengths." In the hologram, a human fighter worked with a Clixery, a Hydronian, and a Pixery. The human provided tactical thinking and adaptability. The Clixery offered speed and multi-limb coordination. The Hydronian contributed 3-dimensional movement skills and environmental awareness. The Pixery supplied technical support and miniaturized equipment. Together, they can defeat opponents twice their individual size, Mi Young continued. But more importantly, they fight in ways that Federation warriors have never seen. They're unpredictable. Dai-Ho studied the simulation. "How are the real fighters adapting to this system?" "Better than we dreamed. Come see for yourself." They walked to the main training area, where Sora was sparring with a mixed team of aliens. She moved like water, flowing around her opponents, while a Clixery partner provided high-speed strikes from unexpected angles. A Pixery technical specialist fed them information about their opponent's weak points through tiny earpiece communicators. "The key is communication," Sora explained during a break in the training. "In traditional fighting, you only worry about yourself. In our system, you have to think about your team, your opponents, and the environment all at the same time. It makes your brain work faster." Tae-Young nodded agreement. He was covered in sweat, but grinning widely. "I've been fighting for 20 years, and I'm learning things I never imagined. Yesterday, a Verdani taught me how to use the arena's plant systems as weapons. Tomorrow, I'm learning Hydronian 3-dimensional combat techniques. And they're learning from you too," added Clickwur, a Clixery representative. Human tactical thinking is unlike anything we have encountered. You see solutions where we see only problems. The asteroid, which they had begun calling Haven Station, was becoming more than a construction project. It was becoming a community. Humans shared their food with aliens who had never tasted Earth spices. Clixery taught human children their lightning-fast games. Hydronians created beautiful water sculptures that amazed everyone who saw them. But the most important development was happening in the communication centers, where Yunbai had set up a network that reached across the galaxy. "We're getting messages from everywhere," she reported to Day-Ho during one of their daily briefings. "Word about Haven Station is spreading faster than we expected." She showed him a screen filled with text in dozens of alien languages. "These are requests from rejected species we didn't even know existed. And look at this ... The screen changed to show messages in familiar Federation script. "These are from current Federation fighters. Warriors who are tired of the rigid rules and predictable matches. They want to know if we would accept them." Day-Ho read through some of the messages. Several came from young fighters who had won Federation matches but felt frustrated by the limitations placed on them. Others came from veterans who had been forced to retire when their fighting styles were declared outdated. "What do you think?" Yunbai asked. "I think the Federation is about to discover that they've been underestimating everyone, not just us." As months passed, Haven Station grew from a construction site into a functioning arena complex. The main fighting area could be reconfigured into dozens of different environments: water zones for Hydronians, vertical climbing areas for species that preferred wall fighting, even zero-gravity sections for creatures that lived in space. The most revolutionary feature was the team preparation areas. Instead of individual locker rooms, the station had collaborative spaces where mixed species teams could plan their strategies and prepare their equipment together. Yan Wu had outdone herself with the weapons and armor systems. Instead of trying to make each species stronger in traditional ways, she had created equipment that enhanced what made each species unique. "Look at this," she showed Dong Hyan, holding up what looked like a simple headband. "It's for human fighters. It analyzes your opponent's movement patterns and suggests counterattacks based on human fighting techniques from every culture on Earth. Kung Fu, boxing, wrestling, capoeira, everything." For the Clixery, she had developed weapons that could be assembled and disassembled at lightning speed, allowing them to adapt their equipment as fast as they could move. The Hydronians received gear that let them bring their water environment with them into any arena. The Pixery got miniaturized, versions of every tool they might need. "The Federation gives fighters standardized equipment," Yanwu explained. "We give each fighter exactly what they need to be their best self." The first test matches were held 6 months after construction began. Teams of mixed species fought against advanced combat simulations based on Federation champions. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. "We're not just competitive," Mi Young reported after analyzing the test data. "We're revolutionary. Our fighters are developing techniques that Federation warriors couldn't even understand, let alone counter." But success brought new challenges. The Federation had begun to notice unusual activity in the remote asteroid field. Scout ships had been spotted at the edge of the system, and Yunbai's network was detecting increased security chatter. "They know something is happening," she warned during a leadership meeting. "We need to decide. Do we stay hidden, or do we announce ourselves?" Day-Ho looked around the table at his human colleagues and alien allies. Representatives from 12 species sat together, planning their next move against the most powerful organization in the galaxy. "We didn't build Haven Station to hide," he said finally. "We built it to prove a point. I think it's time we started proving it." Tiny Storm, despite his small size, had a voice that carried clearly through the room. The Pixari have a saying, "A light hidden under a cover helps no one see the path." Deep Current's water mask bubbled as she spoke. "My people have waited 300 years for this chance. We are ready to be seen." Clickwur's compound eyes focused on each person around the table. The Clixery say, "Speed without direction is just running in circles. We have found our direction." Flowing Sap spoke last, her leafy voice rustling with determination. "The Vergani grow slowly, but we grow strong. We are ready to bloom." That night, as Haven Station's lights twinkled in the darkness of space, Yunbai sent a message across the galaxy. It was broadcast on every entertainment network, every underground communication channel, and every diplomatic frequency. The message was simple. The Liberation Games begin in 30 days. All species welcome. May the best team win. The opening ceremony of the Liberation Games was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of grand displays of power and intimidation, Haven Station celebrated diversity and cooperation. Representatives from 23 different species stood together on the arena floor, many of them meeting each other for the first time. Soren Park stood among them, wearing armor that looked deceptively simple. Ying Wu's design incorporated the best of human engineering with alien innovations, creating protection that enhanced her natural abilities rather than trying to replace them. Her team consisted of Clickwur from the Clixery, a young Hydronian named Swift Current, and a Pixery technical specialist called Brightspark. "Nervous?" asked Clickwur, his 4 arms performing pre-fight stretches that looked like a complex dance. "Excited," Sora replied. "We've trained for this moment for months. Now we get to show the galaxy what teamwork really looks like." In the broadcast center, Yunbai monitored viewing numbers from across the galaxy. "We have over 50 million viewers on the underground networks," she reported to Day-Ho. "And that number is growing every minute." "What about Federation response?" They asked. "Officially, they're ignoring us. Unofficially, ... She pointed to a screen showing ship movements in distant star systems. "They have 3 battle fleets moving in our general direction. How long until they arrive? At least 10 days. Maybe more if they're trying to be subtle about it." Day-Ho nodded. "Then we have 10 days to prove our point. Let's make them count." The first match featured Sora's team against what had once been a Federation preliminary fighter. The opponent was a massive creature called a Braxton, with armor-like skin and claws that could cut through metal. In traditional arena fighting, it would have been nearly unstoppable against smaller opponents. "Remember the plan," Sora whispered to her team as they entered the arena. "Speed, coordination, and adaptation. Don't try to match its strength. Use our advantages." The arena for this match was configured as a multi-level environment with platforms, ramps, and obstacles scattered throughout. This played to the team's mobility advantages while limiting the Braxton's ability to use brute force effectively. The match began with the Braxton charging directly at Sora, expecting an easy victory against the small human. But Sora wasn't there when the claws arrived. She had rolled aside while Clickwur attacked from the opposite direction at blinding speed. The Braxton turned to face the Clixery, but Swift Current was already moving through a water feature in the arena floor, emerging behind the creature to strike at vulnerable points. Meanwhile, Brightspark coordinated their movements through microcommunicators, calling out the Braxton's attack patterns and suggesting counters. "Left shoulder, 3 seconds. Brightspark's tiny voice whispered in their earpieces. So Ra was already moving, her sword striking exactly where the Pixery had predicted the Braxton would expose itself. The blade found a gap in the creature's natural armor, not deep enough to cause serious injury, but enough to prove the point. They could hit their opponent anywhere they chose. For 15 minutes, the team flowed around their opponent, like water around a rock. Every time the Braxton tried to corner one of them, the others would strike from unexpected angles. Every time it adapted to their pattern, they changed tactics completely. The turning point came when the Braxton, frustrated by its inability to catch any of its opponents, let out a roar of rage and began smashing everything in reach. This was exactly what the team had trained for. "Fury Protocol," So-Ra called out. The team scattered to different levels of the arena. The Braxton followed So-Ra up a ramp, thinking it had finally isolated one opponent. But as it climbed, Clickwar was already above it, dropping down to land on its back. Swift Current emerged from a water pool directly in its path, while Brightspark activated an energy net that the tiny Pixie had secretly attached to the arena structure. Caught off balance, blinded by the net, and attacked from 4 directions. At once, the Braxton stumbled and fell. So-Ra placed her sword at its throat before it could recover. The arena fell silent for a moment. Then the crowd exploded into cheers that could be heard throughout Haven Station. In the observation areas, representatives from dozens of species watched the replay in amazement. They had just witnessed something completely new, a victory achieved not through superior strength or natural weapons, but through cooperation and tactical thinking. "Incredible," murmured an old Vorthic warrior who had traveled to Haven Station, to see what all the excitement was about. "In 50 years of fighting, I have never seen anything like this." Over the following days, more matches took place, each one showcasing a different aspect of the Haven Station fighting philosophy. Human. Fighters worked with alien partners to defeat opponents who would have crushed any of them individually. Teams of small, supposedly weak species used coordination and intelligence to overcome much larger, stronger opponents. But the real breakthrough came during the 3rd day of competition, when a team of Federation defectors faced off against one of their former comrades. The defectors were led by a young Vorthic named Stonebreaker, who had grown tired of the Federation's rigid fighting styles. His team included 2 humans, Tae-Young, and a former military pilot named Jin-Woo, along with a Clixery and a Verdani. Their opponent was Skullrender, a Vorthic champion who had won over 30 Federation matches using traditional techniques. "You have shamed our species," Skullrender growled at Stonebreaker before the match began. "Fighting alongside these weaklings instead of proving Vorthic superiority." "I have learned something you never will," Stonebreaker replied calmly. "True. Strength comes from unity, not isolation." The match began with Skullrender using exactly the tactics that Mi-Young's analysis had predicted: direct charges, powerful strikes, and attempts to intimidate opponents through shows of force. Against a traditional opponent, these techniques would have been devastating, but Stonebreaker's team had spent months learning to fight as a unit. When Skullrender charged, he found himself facing not one opponent but 5, each one supporting the others and covering their weaknesses. Tae-Young used his human adaptability to constantly change tactics, keeping Skullrender off balance. Jin-Woo provided aerial reconnaissance and strikes from unexpected angles. The Clixery delivered lightning-fast attacks whenever Skullrender was distracted. The Verdani used the arena's plant systems to create barriers and obstacles. And Stonebreaker, fighting alongside aliens instead of against them, discovered abilities he never knew he possessed. His natural Vorthic strength became even more effective when combined with human tactical thinking and alien techniques. The match ended when Stonebreaker, supported by all 4 of his teammates, managed to pin Skullrender using a combination of traditional Vorthic wrestling and human judo techniques. "This is impossible," Skullrender gasped as he submitted. "You are weaker than me. How did you win?" "Because I wasn't fighting alone," Stonebreaker replied, helping his former rival to his feet. The victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in Federation history, Traditional combat techniques had been completely outclassed by cooperative fighting methods. Within hours of the match, viewing numbers exploded. Underground networks that had been carrying the Liberation Games were suddenly overwhelmed by demand. Even official Federation channels began showing highlights, though they claimed it was only to demonstrate the chaos that resulted from abandoning proper fighting traditions. "We have over 2 billion viewers now," Yunbai reported, her voice filled with excitement and worry. "But that's bringing attention we might not want." She was right. Federation scout ships had been spotted closer to Haven Station, and diplomatic messages were arriving hourly, demanding that the illegal competition be shut down immediately. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. Hai Jin burst into the command center with a message tablet, her diplomatic training barely containing her excitement. "You need to see this," she said, handing the tablet to Dae-ho. "It's from the Nexus Arena." The message was formal and cold, but its implications were enormous. To the operators of the illegal combat facility, the Galactic Combat Federation Council has reviewed footage of your recent exhibitions. While your activities remain unauthorized and in violation of Galactic sporting regulations, the Council acknowledges that some viewers have expressed interest in your unusual fighting methods. Therefore, the Council extends a single opportunity for legitimacy. Select your best fighters for a demonstration match against Federation champions. This match will take place at the Nexus Arena within 30 days. If your representatives provide adequate entertainment value, the Council may consider allowing your facility to operate as a minor league training ground. If your representatives fail to meet Federation standards, your facility will be closed permanently and all participants banned from future competition. This offer will not be repeated. The command center fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. This was exactly what they had hoped for, a chance to prove themselves on the galaxy's biggest stage. But it was also a trap. "They're not offering us equality," Mi-young pointed out after reading the message. The Nexus Arena had never been so crowded. Word of the challenge match had spread across the galaxy, and beings from every known species had traveled to witness the confrontation between the Federation's champions and the upstart rebels from Monks. Haven Station. Dae-ho stood in the visitors' preparation area, watching his team make final equipment checks. The room felt different from Haven Station's collaborative spaces. Here, everything was designed to isolate fighters, to make them feel alone and dependent on their individual strength. "Nervous?" Sora asked, adjusting the straps on her armor. "Terrified," Dae-ho admitted, "but not of losing. I'm terrified that we might win, and they'll refuse to accept it." Through the viewing window, they could see the main arena being prepared. It was massive, 10 times larger than anything at Haven Station, with seating for over 1 million spectators. The fighting surface could be reconfigured into any environment, but today it remained in its standard form, a simple circular platform with no obstacles, no variations, no places to hide or use clever tactics. "They're trying to force us to fight their way," observed Tae-young. "Straight combat, strength against strength." Mi-young studied the arena layout on her portable analyzer. "It's what we expected. They want to eliminate our tactical advantages and make this about raw power. Then we'll have to prove that tactics work even without tricks," said Stonebreaker. The former Federation champion had been quiet during the journey, but now his eyes burned with determination. "I know these champions. I know how they think. They will expect us to be desperate, to try exotic strategies, because we cannot match their strength. And we're going to do exactly the opposite," added Clickwar, his forearms moving in complex patterns as he warmed up his reflexes. "We fight. Simply, directly, but together." A chime sounded, indicating that the match would begin in 10 minutes. Through the arena's communication system, they could hear the crowd's excitement building to a roar dot in the Federation Champions preparation area, 5 of the galaxy's most feared warriors made their own final preparations. Their leader was Voidrender, a massive creature from the gas giant worlds whose body seemed to absorb light itself. Beside him stood Crystal Shard, a being made of living mineral who could reshape her body into weapons. Thunderstrike flew through the air on energy wings, while Bone Crusher's exoskeleton gleamed with built-in weaponry. The 5th champion, Mind Flayer, was a psychic entity that could attack opponents' thoughts directly. "This should be brief," Voidrender rumbled in a voice like a collapsing star. "The rebels have shown skill against weaker opponents, but they face true champions now. The human specimens appear to be their leaders," observed Crystal Shard, her voice ringing like struck glass. "Eliminate them first, and the others will fall into disarray." "Agreed." Thunderstrike crackled with electrical energy. "I will target their communications and coordination. Without teamwork, they are nothing." The arena announcer's voice boomed across the stadium. "Citizens of the galaxy, today we witness a challenge to the natural order. The Galactic Combat Federation's greatest champions will face the rebels who claim that cooperation can defeat individual excellence." The crowd's response was mixed. Traditional Federation supporters cheered for their champions, but there were also voices supporting the Haven Station team. More voices than the Federation had expected. In the blue corner, representing 10,000 years of combat tradition, the Federation champions. The 5 champions entered the arena to thunderous applause. They moved with the confidence of beings who had never known defeat, each one a perfect example of their species' combat evolution. In the red corner, representing the outlaw arena known as Haven Station, the Liberation Team. The Haven Station. Fighters entered to a sound unlike anything heard in the Nexus Arena before. Not just cheering, but the voices of dozens of different species, each calling out in their own language. The inferior races that had been rejected by the Federation were watching their representatives take the field. The 2 teams faced each other across the arena floor. The size difference was striking. The Federation champions were physically larger, more imposing, clearly designed by evolution or engineering for combat. The Haven Station team looked small and fragile by comparison. "You have brought younglings to face adults," Voidrender called across the arena. "We will make this quick to spare them unnecessary pain." "We appreciate your concern," Sora replied calmly, "but we didn't come here to surrender." The arena judge, an ancient Vorthic with scars from 1,000 battles, raised his staff. "This match will continue until one team yields or is unable to continue. There are no other rules." "Begin." The Federation champions immediately implemented their standard strategy. Each fighter attacked the nearest opponent, relying on superior individual strength to achieve quick victories. It was a strategy that had worked for centuries, but the Haven Station team did something the champions had never encountered. Instead of engaging in individual duels, they moved as a single unit. Thunderstrike dove toward Brightspark, intending to eliminate the tiny Pixie first. But Sora was already there, her sword deflecting the energy being's attack, while Taoyang struck from the opposite side. Clickwur moved so fast he seemed to teleport, appearing beside Thunderstrike and delivering 4 simultaneous strikes that sent the champion spinning away at the same time. Crystal Shard reshaped her body into a massive hammer and swung at Stonebreaker. The Vorthic caught the blow on his armored forearm, but instead of trying to overpower her, he redirected her momentum, while swift currents struck at her base with water pressure attacks that found microscopic cracks in her crystal structure. Mind Flayer attempted to attack their thoughts directly, but discovered something unprecedented. The team's mental coordination was so complete that attacking one member meant attacking all of them simultaneously. The psychic backlash stunned the telepathic champion. "Impossible," gasped Bone Crusher as he found himself facing not one opponent, but 6, each one covering the other's attacks and creating openings for counterstrikes. For the first time in their careers, the Federation champions found themselves on the defensive. They had trained to be individual fighters, perfect in their specializations, but unable to adapt when their opponents refused to fight according to established patterns. They fight like a single creature with 12 limbs, Voidrender realized, as he tried unsuccessfully to isolate one target. Because that's exactly what we are, Sora replied, her voice carrying clearly across the arena. Not 6 individuals, but one team. The tide of battle turned when Brightspark activated a device that the tiny Pixary had been secretly building during the fight. Using components that looked like standard equipment, the technical specialist had assembled a field generator that enhanced the team's coordination even further. Suddenly, the Haven Station fighters moved with perfect synchronization. Every attack was coordinated, every defense was shared. Every movement supported the team's overall strategy. Thunderstrike fell first, overwhelmed by attacks from multiple directions that he could not counter simultaneously. Crystal Shard was next, her rigid structure unable to adapt to the fluid, ever-changing assault patterns. Mind Flayer collapsed under the psychic feedback of trying to attack 6 minds functioning as one. Only Voidrender and Bone Crusher remained, and they were already showing signs of exhaustion. Individual excellence, no matter how perfect, could not match the efficiency of perfect teamwork. The end came suddenly. Stonebreaker, supported by all 5 of his teammates, managed to grapple Voidrender while the others systematically dismantled Bone Crusher's weapons and armor. Within moments, both champions were pinned and unable to continue. The arena fell silent. For several long seconds, nobody moved or spoke. Then, slowly, the sound began to build, not cheering, but something deeper. The sound of a galaxy, realizing that everything it thought it knew about strength and combat had just been proven wrong. In the Federation Council box, Chancellor Velthara stared at the arena floor where 6 inferior fighters stood victorious over the galaxy's greatest champions. "This changes everything," she whispered. The arena judge raised his staff with shaking hands. "The Liberation team is victorious." The explosion of sound that followed could be heard throughout the station. But more importantly, it could be heard across the galaxy through billions of broadcast receivers. Beings who had been told they were too weak, too small, too different were watching their representatives prove that cooperation could defeat any individual strength. Taeho joined his team on the arena floor, his heart pounding with victory and relief. But Sora grabbed his arm before he could celebrate. "Look," she said, pointing to the Federation Council box. Instead of congratulating the winners or acknowledging their victory, the council members were talking among themselves in urgent whispers. Their body language suggested not acceptance, but anger. Chancellor Velthara stood and activated the arena's communication system. Her voice boomed across the stadium. "The council has reviewed this match," she announced. While the Liberation team demonstrated adequate combat skills, their methods violate the fundamental principles of individual excellence that the Federation represents. The crowd's cheering began to die down, replaced by confused murmurs.